Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, and so much more. If you need any assistance, reach out to us at 301 325 1550. Today, I'm very excited to have at our podcast a special guest and author, Nathanael Novosel. Since I'm not really qualified enough to properly introduce him to all of our thousands of listeners, I will leave it up to him to take over and provide us some key information about who he is. Nathanael, the floor is yours.
Sure. So I'm Nathanael Novosel. I'm the author of The Meaning of Life, A Guide to Finding Your Life's Purpose. I advised world-class executives for about 18 years now, and I've been studying psychology and philosophy and behavioral economics and religions and everything in between for over 30 years now. So. Yeah.
Wow. So what brought you into writing this book?
Yeah, it's a long story, but the gist of it is that my father disappeared in the middle of the night when I was 5. Now, I don't remember how I felt because I was 5 and I don't have memories back then, but I can tell you that we did find out he moved to California and he wanted to see myself and my brother. And so we went out there for 3 weeks and 2 days. And the thing I do remember is when I came back, the first night back in Pittsburgh, where I'm from, I felt an emptiness, a worthlessness. I felt like someone ripped my heart out of my chest, and I was just bawling my eyes out, crying to myself to sleep. And I was sitting there and I couldn't, do anything but cry and feel miserable. And I asked myself, well, what's the point of all this with all this suffering? And I asked myself, there's a robot part of my brain, I jokingly call it, was just dispassionately going, that's an interesting question. What is the meaning of life? I wonder what the point is. I wonder if you could figure that out. So I spent the next 20 years researching all of these different, fields and understanding. And I even started when I was 6. I started reading stats books on human behavior and things. And what happened was I was leaving a company, going to another one, and I was going to have like a little goodbye speech. And I was like, well, what would I say? What would I impart wisdom-wise on other people about everything I'd learned? And when I did that, I started saying, well, success is really just about a couple of things. And I started rattling off these ideas, these concepts like desire and belief and growth. And I went, hey, that's actually a pretty good list. Like that's actually the core concepts you need to understand to be successful in life. But more importantly, it's the core concepts you need to understand to find meaning in life. And so that's when the book popped into my head and it all kind of came together. I spent 7 years writing the darn thing and I just published it last year.
Wow. So how did you gather up all information about the meaning of life? I mean, obviously, or the meaning of happiness. Obviously, it's such a broad topic. For some, they may say that happiness is about being as rich as Jeff Bezos, or others, they would prefer health and longevity. So how do you go in between that? How do you decipher what is the meaning of happiness?
Yeah, so I dissected it in the following way. I was just kind of taking it all in and saying, okay, these people think this, this philosophy thinks that, and understanding all of it. And I started breaking it down to like, well, what is it that they're trying to define or prescribe? And so I started to figure out, first thing you got to do is define your terms. What is the meaning of life? What do you mean by meaning? And it turns out there are generally 4 major meanings, but there's usually like the goal of life, which that's subjective. So you can't answer that. Everyone is going to have their own goal. So, okay, that's out. Then there's like how to live your life best, like ethics. And that's really, based on what the goal is, right? If you're, you live one way, if you want to achieve one goal, you live a different way if you want to achieve a different goal. So that's also subjective. So I'm like, okay, so that's out. So what's left? Well, how life works is the one I landed upon, which you could actually objectively, scientifically prove. The other one being the origin of life, which again, a hot topic, and no one will know if you believe in a non-physical realm. If science is a study of the physical reality, you'll never be able to scientifically prove it because it's by definition impossible. So I was like, okay, those 3 are out. That the one that's left works. So I was like, okay, what can you do within that? And I found that there were 3 definitions of meaning you could actually prove. One is the definition of life, which if you look it up, you're welcome to go look at the dictionary. It's the capacity to grow. It literally says that in the definition as part of what life is. So growth is the meaning there. Second one is the purpose purpose of life, like what the life intends to do. And we all know from Darwin that basically the things that don't die live on. And so, but that's not a purpose, right? What do you intend to do? Well, everyone intends to grow, reproduce, and so forth before they die, aka they intend to grow. So growth is the point, is the definition there. Then I went to the third one: what makes life significant? And all you have to do is look at achievement awards and say, okay, well, what do you award people for? Well, you do like lifetime achievement awards and achievement awards for like great music and art and all this other stuff. It's like, okay, well, what do they win the award for? Like, they don't print out a DVD of the movie and then have it go up on stage and get the award. You give it to the person. Why do you give it to the person? You don't necessarily give them for the achievement, because you talk about their journey and how they got there. That's what they care about. So it's all about the growth into the person who they became to write that song or make that movie. So significance is based on how much you've grown or how much growth you've enabled in the world. So those three are objectively accessible, and that ended up being the meaning of life in this context.
Wow. Okay. And for you, you said that you went to go see your father after he disappeared on when you were 5 years old. How long after did you find him?
He, I think, reached out via letter about 6 months after he disappeared and said where he was and what he was doing, and that he wanted to see us. Yeah.
Was he able to explain to you guys what was the purpose or was the reason he did what he did, or you guys were too young to really, absorb that kind of information?
Oh, he didn't explain himself, and nor did he think he had to. He's kind of borderline what you might call a narcissist personality. Like, he only really cares about himself, and that's okay. I mean, everyone has their own life choice. I don't recommend you have a couple of kids if you're going to have that attitude.
Yeah.
But he wanted to live his life the best way possible, and he thought that was what he really wanted to do with his life, so he went and did it.
Are you a father yourself, Nathanael?
No, I'm not.
Okay, okay. Do you feel that when after you went back to Pittsburgh after seeing him, and you said that you felt crushed, you felt like someone ripped the part of your heart off, were you in touch with him afterward? You still kept a grudge for what he's done?
No, I never held a grudge for what he did, because I mean, he did what he did. We went out every summer in fact, it went from 3 weeks to 2 days to 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 10 weeks. But I stopped going out there in high school. I was playing football and wanted to do the summertime activities with my teammates instead of missing it for California. But yeah, I never held a grudge, but I did kind of what you call estranged or whatever, because I just told him one day, I said, I don't like you. You're not a good person. Like, you're just a selfish person, and that's your choice. But when you do it at the harm of others, or just to put down others and blame everyone else for when they say, hey, you hurt my feelings, and you say, oh, well, sorry you feel that way. That whole
Yeah.
like, not sorry. I just don't want to associate with them. So that's how it went.
Was your brother affected as much as you did, as you were, Nathanael, or he was kind of like reluctant to what you've done, or not really paying much attention of his behavior?
That's a great question. I this is embarrassing. I never thought about it. Because I mean, he was affected by it a little bit, obviously, but I don't see him, like, I've talked to him a million times about just stuff in the vicinity. I never heard him, like, I mean, he agrees with me on the points about his behavior and attitude.
Okay.
But I mean, if anything, he holds less of a grudge than I do. So.
Usually, like event like that, post-traumatic event, usually brings siblings together closer
Mhm.
because they have a common denominator of who abandoned them. So they feel that they have to get closer and more connected. So I was just wondering if that was his same mentality or his same approach for what he's gone through as much as you did.
Um, yeah, I mean, we're siblings, best friends, and it's we definitely we're also only 18 months apart, so that's one of those things where you
Are
can
you the
have that
older
close
or he's
relationship.
the oldest?
Older, yeah, I'm the younger one.
Are you the younger
So
one?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's really it's really good, but unfortunately, you know, I guess he had his own issues over the years with his identity. So I guess there's just a different set of issues than I had.
I see. I see. Now, what brought you into your career choice?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Two pieces of background. One piece is that I finally got diagnosed a couple of years ago, but I have like very mild autism spectrum disorder.
Okay,
Enough where I can hide it and no one can tell.
that's good.
Not enough where anyone feels bad for me.
Yeah,
So they just think I'm a jerk, I guess. I don't know. But
I would have never guessed that you were autistic, and I deal with
yeah.
autistic disorders.
Well, I didn't even know either. Like I would do some weird things, but no one would notice. Like there are traits of autism, like a little bit of OCD. So like like a little bit of that, a little bit like I just repeat sounds I'd hear just randomly, and people are like, "What's going?" Like that's weird, but it's like I didn't even understand. I wondered why I was doing it. And there are some weird things like that. The eye contact thing is the hardest thing for me. I have tricks and things, but man, it's hard to hold I can't. My brain can't function and then maintain eye contact for a long period of time. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that led me to study human behavior because I was trying to understand it to actually do it well because everyone else gets it naturally. Me, I'm like, I don't understand why people are yelling at me. I don't understand what's going on. Like why are people bored when I talk? Like, and it's like, oh, you have to show emotion. Like you have to like actually be animated when you. So I, all this like inflection in my voice. This is trained over decades, like
Wow.
training to do this. But the other piece that you mentioned, the career. I got to tell you, it was an accident, but a happy accident. So I graduated a semester early from college.
Okay.
So I was supposed to graduate in spring 2004. Because I like to be productive, I actually had enough credits to graduate. I was 3 credits off or 1 class off the semester before I was supposed to graduate. So I could actually graduate in 3 years if I would have taken one extra class somewhere. And I didn't know that until I actually was registering for the fall. So it turned out I just took all these psychology classes because I was in finance because you had to be smart to be in finance. I'm like, well, I'm smart. But I took psychology, loved it. So I'm really glad I got that last semester, but I graduated in 3.5 years and I had no job because I didn't expect to graduate for another 6 months. So I put my stuff on the internet, my resume and so forth, and just through sheer luck, someone named Brooke. I still don't know who that is, but thank you, Brooke. Referred me, I think, to make the $500 referral bonus. I
Yeah.
don't care. She referred me to a company called the Corporate Executive Board, which is was a research and advisory firm for Fortune 500 companies to basically interview companies' leaders, find out what the best practices are, and then be able to articulate them through case studies to the people who need help with those said practices.
Okay.
And I spent years there wondering, well, okay, I'm just going to be there for a couple of years, then I'm going to go get an MBA or something, and then go find out what I really want to do.
Okay.
And it was years and years. I kept getting promoted, and I was like, okay, well, I just keep getting promoted, whatever. So there was several years in, I was like, okay, I got to figure out what I really want to do. I can't just keep stalling every time. And I asked myself, well, what do I like to do? And I was like, well, hold on, what do I do in my job? I was like, I learn and I teach research and advisory. And I was like, I like doing that. I like knowing things. I like learning things. I do that in my spare time. I learn more things. Like maybe I'm doing what I like to do. And so, yeah. I mean, it was just a matter of sheer luck that I happened to go into a field that happens to be my strength. And I happened to get through my career to the best role for me within that organization, which was to be a researcher and advisor. And now I'm writing my own books, doing the research and then trying to provide advisory in a topic that I'm really passionate about because I advise heads of data analytics and IT and all these other senior roles. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, do I love that field? It's like, well, I like the field, but I love talking about philosophy. I learned it. I studied in my spare time. Why don't I try to do some stuff there?
Do you find after that many years of working with your autism, do you feel still a struggle when you speak in front of people, or have you already tamed that kind of issue?
Oh yeah, no, I have a hard time breathing for the first 3 minutes every time I speak, even though I've spoken hundreds and hundreds of times in front of audiences, and every time I still go up there and I can't breathe for the first 30 seconds. So I'm just like talking like this, not breathing, and then I go, okay, Nate.
Breathe,
Okay,
exhale.
now we're good.
Now you're
But
good.
it's a every single time. Plus, there's always an eye contact issue. I have to like consciously remember to do it. Otherwise, I'll be talking at the ground the whole time because I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah.
I find really good. I'm good on. So there's some tricks. So like you can go on stage, and when you're on stage and you're higher than everybody else, that you're looking down is just natural. Everyone just thinks you're looking at the audience, and you're really just looking down. So there are some tricks like that you could use to get through it. But as you can tell from from my my animated voice. That's the other thing that's really important, because when I was younger, I didn't really speak at all. When I did speak, it was kind of monotone, and I realized no one cared when I talked. So I also have anxiety, which I translate into enthusiasm. So I use those two tricks to actually, okay, inflect my voice, tell stories, and that's through research advisory training that I learned how to tell stories in that manner. So I've actually become pretty darn good. And even though I have, my own issues, like it hard for me to make friends, hard for me to not offend people when I say things, because I say things that I don't realize that people are, the socially awkward things and stuff like that. Oh, I run into that all the time. And then sometimes I just like, I don't understand why they're even mad. Like, I talk about my worst life trauma as if I'm talking about what I had for breakfast yesterday. And apparently like that's weird to people. And then they get really uncomfortable.
It can be. First of all, they just don't know. That why is he so open? Why is he telling me all this kind of thing?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very
because I'm super honest, and it's like, and they're like TMI, right? I get told
too
TMI a
much
lot.
info.
But when you're autistic, you just don't understand it. You're just like, I don't know, why are you upset? It's just whatever it is.
So when were you clinically diagnosed for
A couple
being autistic?
a couple years ago, basically what happened was I actually, funny story, I actually got a really bad review at a presentation I did, which is weird because I'm otherwise, they say I'm really good. So, but I read the review and it was basically a diagnosis. So they said,
Oh,
didn't maintain eye contact, didn't have what they called executive presence, which you might figure is being a confident,
yes.
exuding, charisma type of person, which is just not, autistic people are known for doing that. They're
They like
internal,
that
not
skill.
external.
Yes.
And so, and it was just a whole list of things that I didn't do. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do this. So I went to a psychologist and I said, hey, I've always thought I had some mild autism spectrum disorder, because I looked at the list and I basically can qualify for all of them, except for I now understand sarcasm. I think I learned it because I used to be dumb and assume what everyone said was true, no matter what they said. But now I understand it, so maybe I must have learned it or something. And I also have really good reflexes for the most part, which I know autistics can be kind of clumsy. I am clumsy and socially awkward, but I have really insane reflexes, so I don't understand that one. But other than that, she was going through a list. She's like, "Oh, did you hate crowds when you were a kid?" I was like, "Yeah, I cry and I put my hands on my ears and I wouldn't want to be there." And they're like, "Oh, did you have weird things when you were a kid? Do you have like OCD things?" And I'm like, "Yeah, when my mother would feed me spaghetti, every time I take a bite, I'd start crying until she wiped my mouth, and then I would stop, and then she'd take another bite and I'd cry, and then she did that." And then she's like, "Did you have any issues with like decision making or things that normal humans would be fine with?" And I said, "Yeah, I couldn't put my clothes on because I couldn't decide what order to put them on in." So my mother created a system for me, because brains think like more like algorithms essentially. And
Correct.
so she created an algorithm for me. I mean, I wouldn't call it back then, but she's like, "Oh, so if she put out my clothes in a certain way, and then so I knew how to put on my clothes in the right order, so I didn't have to just sit there paralyzed trying to figure out how to do it." And I still follow that system to this day, because it's just like, okay, so I gotta put on the underwear first, and it's like so I need to match the pants and the shirt. Okay, so which one? Okay, I'm gonna pick this, and then I have a certain selection of shirts that match these pants, and so I'm gonna do that. Then the
Wow,
belt and the
that's
shoes
OCD,
kind of
isn't
go
it?
with that. So like I sit there and that's how I have to do things, but I've managed to do it so systematically that I can seem natural doing it, until I actually explain it like I am now, which people think I'm nuts, but it is what it is.
Or why don't you do like Albert Einstein? He always had the same clothes, the same. He had duplicate of the same shirt, the same pants, the same jacket. I mean, no need to really. He said, "I didn't want to waste too much of my time in the morning to start selecting my clothing."
Yeah.
And he was right. He said, "Today, what should I wear?" Always the same.
I do stick with black shoes, brown shoes, navy blue kind of thing for like suits and stuff. So I try to stick with the standard stuff. I try to pick things that kind of go with like a few select set of like the shoes and stuff. But I have learned to like maybe a few different styles or colors of clothing. I used to wear black and gray almost exclusively for a few years, not because I was goth or anything, but just because it was like, it matches everything. I don't have to think about it. But I like I got my yellows and stuff here. So
It is not too much contrast either. So what would you tell to people who are listening about how to overcome their biggest challenge? So for you, you overcame the whole autistic thing. But if someone is dealing with anxiety, depression, sadness, seasonal affective disorder, whatever else they have, what would you encourage them to do when it comes to overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, there are quite a few things that you can do. Let's just kind of bullet off the list. Number one, you gotta keep yourself healthy. That's the number one thing. I had an issue in the past year because of the COVID lockdowns. I actually got a severe vitamin D deficiency because I didn't leave the house,
Yes.
and my whole body started breaking down. I couldn't leave my bed without feeling excruciating pain 24/7, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong. So I started taking vitamins and things whenever I found out, oh, I have like almost zero vitamin D, and everything started to clear up. So like you got to stay healthy. That's sunlight. You got to be outside once in a while. I mean, we live in a world that's sedentary and inside. You got to go outside, fresh air, water, exercise, or walking, anything to get your heart going. You got enough sleep. Make sure you take care of that, because if you don't have those taken care of, then whatever you have is just definitely not gonna. You're not doing yourself any favors, especially with things like depression and things. A lot of times, just the combination of sun and exercise and sleep can actually make a lot of that, alleviate a lot of those symptoms that they have. So that's number one. Number two is, oftentimes people like feel a lot of pressure to live by how other people want them to. I actually, being a kid, I jokingly said I had perfect child syndrome, because when my father left, my mother raised me as a single mother, and she looked stressed all the time. She hated her job. So I was like, okay, don't do anything wrong. You don't want to make this person any more upset because you really care about her. And, she kind of got dealt a bad hand. So I tried to do everything right. I followed every rule. Everyone said, don't do drugs, and do drugs. Like, don't climb ladders. Okay, I'm not going to climb a ladder. Like, whatever. Like, I follow all these, like, don't do any of this stuff. So like, okay, I'm not going to do any of it. But you also got to be careful with that kind of thing, because while you follow the rules, someone might apply rules that actually shouldn't apply to you, right? Like, oh, don't go into that. That's stupid. It's like, well, no, maybe I like doing that. It's like, so you got to be very careful not to live by someone else's definition of success, because you will be miserable and wonder why. So figure out what you want in your life and just try to make slow progress. You don't have to change your life or quit your job or move, 5,000 miles or anything like that. Although you can, but you're probably just as good off just kind of slowly making some changes and seeing if do you feel better or worse. Kind of like I always joke, like it's like an eye exam, like make a change, better or worse, better or worse, better or worse, and you may want to make sure it's better, better, better. So I would recommend that you just make sure you've got your right definitions of success, and success is going to be forms of growth that matter to you. So could be physical growth, maybe you like to go to the gym. Could be spiritual growth. Maybe you want to be more in touch with God or the universe or whatever your beliefs are. Could be social growth. You want to spend more time with friends. Could be familial growth. Maybe you want to have kids and settle down and raise great kids. Those are all different forms of growth, and your success will be exactly a combination of those things. And then finally, the last thing is that we live in a weird world that is not necessarily how humans were evolved to live. Most news media, social media, and technology, and all these other things, they've hacked the brain. So they know what gets you addicted. They know what hits those dopamine hits. They know what keeps you watching. They know what keeps you clicking. They know what scares you into behaviors that they want you to exude. So you have to disengage from that stuff. It's probably one of the big causes of what's going on for you. You gotta like get off the news and social media and stuff. Just take time to rest. Meditate, whatever it is. Go for a walk. Whatever it is you do that doesn't involve all that stuff that's messing with the chemicals in your brain without you necessarily realizing it. Just get unplug, get out of all that stuff, and then see if maybe that's causing your depression. Like seeing all these people with there's fake photos of them looking beautiful and having magical lives on Facebook. If that kind of stuff is causing your problem, it's because that stuff's not real, but they know how to make it make you feel a feeling that keeps you in the state that you're in.
Especially I see like a lot of people that take pictures in their private jets, but people don't realize that they rent this jet and it's not flying, it's sitting on the ground. You just rent for an hour and you say that, oh, you're headed for an event on your private jet. This is BS, but a lot of people have the tendency to believe that crap. And because they believe that, oh, how come he succeeded and I'm still stuck in a miserable job that I could not see any growth in it. But they have to realize that the growth is internal. It starts internally. And then when you feel happy with yourself, then you could go and show it to the world. Like for you, you knew that you had passion about what you're doing, and then you made it a career because you knew that once you're passionate about something, it no longer becomes a job.
Yeah.
It's a hobby that makes you money.
Yeah. I wrote that book for 7 years and I liked most of it. There were some times where it's like, oh man, I don't want to look at this again, or oh man, the ethics chapter was killer because, priming, right, in psychology, where it's like, so I'm writing this thing on ethics and everything I see is now an ethical dilemma, and I'm just like, oh god, I want to get out of this chapter, please, just stop. But yeah, but yeah, it was fun. I did it on my spare time, and I didn't. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if anything, I've because it costs a lot of money to get the book published, all
Oh,
this stuff. I
absolutely. Yeah.
mean, and I did a lot of that stuff, and I mean, I didn't do it for the money. I mean, I did it because it's like, well, if someone else would benefit from understanding how things work and to be able to positively influence their own lives, and that's great. But yeah, I did it. You said, they said it's if you found what you love, what you do, if you would do it for nothing. I literally done this for nothing. So hopefully people find value from it. And maybe that changes in the future where it becomes a profitable thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a passion that you can identify in your life, or passions that will really work for you. And you'll live the life that those people that you mentioned on social media pretending to be, you'll live that life. But yeah, just don't define like success isn't a private jet. I mean, like, who
I know.
cares? Like,
It's
who
more
cares?
material. Yeah, it's more material for people because they feel that this is what the meaning of success is. But then
Yeah.
money doesn't bring happiness. I mean,
Yeah.
it does help pay the bills, etc., if you have the money, but then you will feel that there's still something missing, and people cannot really define what happiness is. And this is one of the biggest struggle for many, not
Yeah.
knowing what definition is for them. And they always look at what definition is for the other people,
Yeah.
and people really always still get stuck with how other people perceive you. You see, they're afraid to being judged. They're afraid of this or that. Oh, maybe I'm going to disappoint that person. Who gives a damn?
Yeah.
Make yourself happy first, and who cares about the rest?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff isn't really all it's cracked up to be, right? So like, it's not like once something happens to you, magically your entire life becomes like with no problems, right? So like I'm going through that now, right? The Meaning of Life book won 11 awards and superlatives, and magically, I'm not like showing up on Oprah or anything, and like everyone's saying, oh, you're the most amazing person ever. Like, that didn't happen. It's just like, okay, so I got this thing and that's it, and then now I like there's nothing. Or we just launched a book on Friday, actually. It's called The X Factor: The Spiritual Secrets of Successful Executives and Entrepreneurs. And we did this giant launch campaign. All the money goes to Penn State Dance Marathon, so all proceeds go to charity. Sold tons of copies, and now I can say I'm a best-selling author now. I was like, great. I was like #1 in all these subcategories. I think we were in the top 1,000 just in the first day of books on Amazon, and that's wonderful. But again, it's just like, okay, great, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like it's
What's the
not
next
like
step, kind of thing?
yeah, it's not like magically like, oh, okay, now I'm like, my every day my life is magical and perfect and literally there's nothing else. Like, no, literally my life was exactly the same as it
Yes.
was 5 minutes before that happened. So yeah, okay, maybe make more money doing this, that, or the other thing. Maybe this happens, maybe that happens, maybe your life's a little bit easier, but you got to find love in what you do every day, and the love in the experiences that you have every day, while you're searching for, more experiences, more growth to have, or else you are just going to be chasing, what Buddhists say, just kind of chasing happiness forever and never finding it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, that's all the time we have for today's podcast. I do appreciate the time you took out of your very busy schedule, especially being a #1 bestseller. Thank you for participating and inspiring our many listeners. And we hope you have all enjoyed today's episode. I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests we have scheduled for the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one you listened today. And here are a few concluding words of wisdom. Quick lessons in Quantum Physics 101. The present is defined by a confluence of your thoughts, guided and restricted by your belief. The future becomes the present when your belief changes. Time measures how much effort you require to change your thoughts. And finally, space shows exactly what you're now thinking about. And therein, you see that the one universal, immovable, unifying equation that sums up all the things physical and metaphysical is thought become things, just like the laws of attraction. And that is all you really need to know. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life. Thank you all.